While we all might be distracted by aliens or Lizzo being sued for fat shaming, there is still a large issue that America is being faced with that isn't being talked about. Yes, our wide open southern border. Since 2020, over 7 million illegal immigrants have crossed into the United States, and one of the cities that has been hit the hardest is New York. New York City, which previously advertised itself as a sanctuary city, aka a city where illegal immigrants can live without fear of deportation despite federal laws, is, surprise surprise, one of the biggest hotspots for illegal immigrants. And the city, particularly Mayor Eric Adams, is feeling the heat. Now, since last year, over 90,000 illegal immigrants have made their way to NYC, and to give you guys some context as to how many people that is, here's a shot of one of Taylor Swift's biggest concerts this year with over 71,000 people in attendance. Now add 20,000 more on top of that. That's how many illegal immigrants have made their way to New York City in just the past year. Now back in 2022, Eric Adams had already declared a state of emergency. I mean, he was stressed, okay? There were people pouring in from left to right and it hasn't stopped. I mean, currently we have groups of illegal immigrants sleeping on the streets of New York because intake centers, shelters, and hotels have become so overrun. Now, critics of Adams have stated that this was kind of his fault, highlighting his long past of promoting New York as a sanctuary city and promoting the city's right to shelter law, which requires New York to provide shelter to anybody who asks for it.
You know, I'm proud that this is a right to shelter state.
Now, this statement from Adams was from the beginning of the migrant crisis back in August of 2022, so let's fast forward to today and see how New York City is holding up.
We have no more room in the city.
Yeah, in less than a year, New York, and when I say New York, I mean the taxpayers, is estimated to be spending over $4 billion on sheltering and caring for illegal immigrants. By the way, less than a year ago, Adams initially budgeted this cost at around $1 billion, and now New York is projected to eclipse this budget by over $4 billion by the next year. And again, the mass migration surge has gotten so bad that this is the current situation right now.
Now, these are asylum seekers. They arrived in New York City a couple of days ago, hoping to get processed at the Roosevelt Hotel. Now, this was an iconic hotel. It's been in movies, but it shut down about 3 years ago and reopened earlier this year as an intake center for asylum seekers. Now, this weekend, they were at capacity, so these migrants were left to sleep on the sidewalk. You can see the only thing separating them from the concrete is cardboard.
Now, after the original influx of migrants quickly filled emergency shelters, New York then began pleading with the federal government for assistance, and they've been pretty much ignored. So New York basically had to get creative and figure out where they were going to put an additional 90,000 plus people. And luckily for us, anytime the government has to solve a problem, they know how to do it quickly, efficiently, and in the most cost-effective way possible. Now, they started off by last year trying to create an outdoor tent city in a parking lot in front of the ocean in the Bronx. Now, not only were residents of this area upset, but the city also decided to put this up in a parking lot that was prone to flooding in the middle of winter, where it was already 40 degrees outside. I would know because I went to go report on this and it was absolutely freezing out there. The project got shut down after a mere 10 days and the tents were moved to a different location. And afterward, the mayor wouldn't really tell anyone how much this project cost, but many projected it cost the city several million dollars. Now, during this debacle, migrants were also being sent to hotels throughout the city, and earlier this year, Adams even stated that 50% of New York hotels were filled with illegal immigrants, a number that has been combated here and there by various people. But Adams continued to ask hotels if they'd be interested in housing more migrants, with many turning down the offer due to reports of migrants trashing the rooms of various other properties. Also, to give you guys an example of how much money New York is pouring into housing migrants in hotels, Adams signed a $275 million contract to house 5,000 migrants for just 6 months. That's around a budget of around $55,000 per migrant. And if you want some insight into what that money was going to, think free Metro cards, Uber rides, hospital visits, 3 meals a day, etc. Watch my video where I sat down with a whistleblower who worked in one of the hotels listed in the contract deal I just talked about. And if you think New York was already in a state of collapse at this point, you'd be absolutely right, but because it's the government handling this situation, it only continued to get worse. Now, after the hotels became full, the city decided to put single adult male migrants in gymnasiums of schools, where young children were actively present. Now, naturally, parents pulled their kids out of school citing safety concerns, and local news even stated that parents weren't informed about the decision and that cots were just set up in gyms for the migrants. Now, this proposal was quickly withdrawn after many protests. However, Adams stated that this option is still potentially on the table just in case. Also, university dorms have been floated as potential housing for more migrants as well, so those are also up for grabs. And it continues. Adams then proposed paying New Yorkers to house migrants in their own private homes.
To take the next step to this, to go to the faith-based locales, and then move to private residence.
He also proposed busing them to different suburbs throughout New York State against the will of various city leaders who were like, yeah, we don't have the resources, please don't do that. In the latest announcement, the city is planning to use the parking lot of a psychiatric hospital to house male adult migrants, and the outdoor fields on Randall's Island, where children typically play their soccer games, are also currently being considered. So basically, the city and its officials that once boasted their status on welcoming all illegal immigrants has now been reduced to pleading with migrants not to come to the city because they are now sleeping on the streets due to the city being so overrun. The local government has even gone so far as to hand out flyers in Spanish talking about how high the cost of living, food, housing, transportation in New York is, and also try to convince migrants to maybe consider going to another state, with Adams implementing a 60-day limit on how long migrants can now stay in shelters. He also asked a New York judge to suspend New York's right to shelter law regarding migrants, and is now calling to secure the southern border.
We need to control the border. We need to call a state of emergency, and we need to properly fund this national crisis.
However, the situation doesn't look like it's going to stop anytime soon, and I mean, why would it? This is a city that has boasted free housing, free escape from the law, and 3 meals a day for illegal immigrants who have crossed into this country, which is why many are cheering on New York's decline as karmic justice for everything the city and its politicians have promoted. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. Click any of the links down below and go follow everywhere that you can. Thank you so much for watching this video. My name is Savannah Hernandez, and thank you guys for being informed about what's going on in the United States of America.